Hey everybody, welcome to Tech Tuesday. I've got about 4 minutes until 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and just wanted to let you know we'll get started right at 2 o'clock. Thanks for joining, and we'll get started in just a few minutes. For those of you just joining us, we'll get the show started right at about 2 o'clock Eastern Time, so just bear with us. We've got about 2 minutes, and we'll get going. Thanks. Hello, I'd like to welcome everybody to Tech Tuesday. I'm Jim Bush, one of the support managers here at DataLink and Customer Support. This is our 5th Tech Tuesday for 2014, and we're glad you're able to take time out of your busy schedules to join us. Today's session is going to cover NetBackup OpsCenter 7.6 from top to bottom, left to right, whichever way you want to slice it. I've got some real quick housekeeping to go over before we get started. Today we're going to have the Advanced Support Engineer, Chet Boardman, responding to the questions via the Q&A tool. So any questions you may have while Paul's talking, just ask them through the Q&A tool. We'll send a transcript after the conclusion of the presentation. Probably give it a day or two till we make sure we have all the questions answered. The recorded version of this event is going to be available online a few days after the presentation is completed. You'll get a link via email, and you should be able to go out and see any of the previous Tech Tuesdays as well. If you have any questions after the event is concluded or suggestions on future Tech Tuesday topics, please feel free to send those to techtuesday@datalink.com. And today's speaker is going to be Paul Weaver, Advanced Support Engineer with OneCall. Paul's been doing this for 20 years and is very well spoken in this area. Paul told me he has a lot of material to go through today, so we're going to get this going. I know you'd rather not listen to me, so it's all yours, Paul.
All right. Thanks, Jim. And again, welcome to DataLink's Tech Tuesday. We will be covering OpsCenter 7.6, and there is a lot to cover, so we will get started. I'll try to cover as much as I can within the 4 hours that we have. No, sorry, 1 hour that we have. And it won't hit everything at a deep level, but hopefully we will give you enough to configure and use OpsCenter if you haven't already, and to utilize it more effectively if you are. So quick agenda for today. We're going to be talking about what you can use OpsCenter for, or what is it good for, configuring OpsCenter, creating alerts, some advanced topics, which will also include troubleshooting. So let's get started. And this won't be all slide. I'm going to hopefully do some live demo for you. So keep it interesting. So what can you do with OpsCenter? Well, there is a difference between OpsCenter 7.6 and versions earlier, 7.5 and earlier. As you can see on the screen, essentially Symantec has stripped out third-party utilities like IBM Tivoli and EMC Networker and such. So OpsCenter 7.6 now is targeted at the NetBackup applications, including the appliances and PureDisk, and it can also monitor backup exec. But as far as monitoring and managing, as you can see, 7.6 will only do that for the NetBackup line of products. This slide coming up kind of gives you an overview of the differences between OpsCenter and OpsCenter Analytics. OpsCenter is the free version of the package that is included with NetBackup, and OpsCenter Analytics is enabled by adding an appropriate license. If you have capacity-based licenses already, then OpsCenter is included with that. If you have traditional licensing, I believe Analytics is a separate license, but you'll have to check with your account reps for final say on that. But this kind of gives you a different or a difference comparison between the two products. Essentially, the free OpsCenter will keep up to 60 days of history. It can't really do any forecasting or trending. You can only do canned reports that come. Now, there are a lot of canned reports, but with the free version, you're limited to just those. And with the analytics side, you can do a whole lot more. You can create your own reports either using the custom report wizard, which is based upon the templates that Symantec provides, or if you are fluent in Sybase SQL, then you can create your own custom reports, as well as also do chargeback reporting. So if your department charges as a service for backup to the other parts of the company, you can generate those types of reports with a cost associated, so you can effectively bill the other departments if that is something that your company does. Again, if you would, the chart comes from the link that you see down below, and that also has a lot of good information in it. There will be some links that I refer to throughout the presentation, and I don't necessarily expect you to write them down now unless you're a quick writer. However, when the presentation does become available online, they will be there for reference in case you need to go back. Now, also you will see a link to Symantec videos. There are more and more video or screencasts that Symantec is doing for their different product lines, and that includes OpsCenter, and we'll kind of touch on those a little bit as we go forward. But for anything that you miss here, a lot of the getting started or how to install videos that are available from Symantec are either found on the installation DVD or online. We will progress. Screen updates, okay. Now I'm going to jump into configuring OpsCenter. We're not going to talk about installing OpsCenter that much except for what we cover here. Again, because there are videos that are available on the DVD, or if you download the media from Symantec's File Connect, the videos will be included there as well as online. So I'm making the assumption that most everyone listening today can easily do that. If not, then please contact DataLink OneCall, and we can provide that information to you. Real quick, you can upgrade to 7.6. That will include 7.6.02, which was just released as a patch to 7.6.01 from any of the 7.0.x OpsCenter versions or newer. If you're running anything older, whether you're running Veritas Backup Reporter or NOM for the older products, you will need to upgrade at least to a 7.x version like 7.0 or 7.1 before upgrading to 7.6.01. And for supportability in the middle, you will see that Windows is supported both x86 and x64. I will make a note that the 32-bit platform is for the OpsCenter agent. The server component is required to run on a 64-bit OS, and that will include Red Hat, SUSE, and then Solaris, as you see there. Again, and the analytics is enabled by adding the appropriate license. You need to make sure that your server that you're running on, whether it's virtual or physical, does have the necessary resources. The link that you see at the bottom, Symantec has released a performance tuning guide specifically for OpsCenter now, and that has a lot of the details on how to get the best out of OpsCenter, some of which we will be covering today. They've had that information out there kind of piecemealed in earlier versions in tech notes and the admin doc and reporting doc, but now they've consolidated the performance-related stuff into the link that you see on the screen, which makes it very handy for reference. So if you're going to be installing OpsCenter or you're having performance issues, it would be good to start at that link to make sure that your server is functioning the best that it can before opening a call with us at OneCall. Also to note that we are not going to be talking about installing the search feature that comes with NetBackup. That is a separate component that is installed either on a NetBackup media server. Well, it has to be installed in a NetBackup media server, typically not the OpsCenter. But we will be covering the search and hold feature. But again, that is a separate component that comes with the NetBackup software. So when you actually go through the NetBackup installation CD or DVD or installer if you're on Windows, it will be listed there. So we will skip that. As also for installation, since we're at this point, these are the ports that OpsCenter will use for communication. there will actually be a nice graphic later on that kind of lays this out a little bit better, but I wanted to highlight them here that, you know, when setting up OpsCenter, it's best to make sure if you have any firewalls that these ports are open. You can see at the top link for HTTP and HTTPS, those ports are actually configurable. There is a configure ports utility that comes with OpsCenter that you can run to change the ports if you need to. It's best that OpsCenter run on its own server because it has its own web engine and it has its own database. However, it can run for smaller sites and smaller installs. It can run on the master server. However, as your environment grows, you will want to definitely separate the two for performance reasons. So on with configuration, and we'll jump into a live demo real soon. One of the new things with 7.6, for those who are installing it for the first time and getting going, you can see on the screen, Symantec includes almost a configuration wizard, per se, that you can use to get started. However, it's not as detailed as you might think, but it's enough to kind of get your feet wet and get data collecting. And we will now jump into a live demo for configuring. So hopefully this will come up soon. There we go. Okay, this is what the new OpsCenter 7.6 looks like if you have not seen it before. As I mentioned, there are getting started videos in the middle, if you can see my cursor, as well as documentation. You will notice browser recommendations. I am actually using Chrome, so you can use Chrome with OpsCenter, but of course it won't pass the qualification check. But for 99% of what we're going to be doing, it will work. So when you first install OpsCenter, the default user is admin, and the default password is password, all lowercase. And then you will log in. I've already done this, so I'm going to jump to the home page, which is where the wizard is. And here, there are several different links. I'm going to start with this about OpsCenter roles. One thing about OpsCenter that's been there from the past is that you can have different roles for different users. And on the screen, you can see a list of the different roles. There's a security administrator, there's an administrator, an operator, a restore operator, and a reporter. Essentially, a security administrator can do everything, including add, edit, and delete users. And this will tie in to Active Directory or LDAP if you are using those. That integration should be fairly seamless already. So you can easily do that, but that is the security administrator, which the admin account is. Then you have a regular administrator, which can do everything except user management. An operator, which essentially allows someone to log in and not look at the configuration or do anything specific to the OpsCenter server, but they can do reporting, they can do restores, and such. Then you have a restore operator, of course, and then a reporter. And real quick to cover these, when you start, if you click Add NetBackup, it'll walk you through the process. And we will do that real quick, even though the master server that I am adding is already there. We will see. And of course it knows it, but if it didn't, it would go through and make that setup. There is a command that you can run on a master server, nbreg ops, to also register OpsCenter from the master server side or NetBackup master server side as well, and that will also go through this process of adding from that side. We'll just go ahead and close. With OpsCenter, one of the things about having different users is you can create different views based upon need. So you might have an Exchange administrator that you want them to see into NetBackup only those things related to Exchange. You could have a storage admin that you only give access to view, your filers, whether it's NetApp or EMC, NDMP stuff. You can create different views for different people, and this is a way to start that process. Essentially, all we're doing here, though, is defining we want to create a view. We'll get to later, because it's not part of the wizard, how to define what is seen within those views. But you can see you can create a view based on clients upon a master server if you're running multiple NetBackup domains, or even policies. So I will go ahead and cancel that here, because we're not going to do that. For adding users, we will do this, and this is where you can define a new user within the OpsCenter domain, or within an existing Windows group or LDAP group, whether it's a specific user or a group of users. We can go through here, and you can see all those. Those are our different lab domains. And then you would, I already have a Fred. I'm going to actually do this. I'm going to create a new user, Barney. Yep. Slow down in my typing so it can catch up. And then we can define what kind of user role that we want for Barney, whether it's enabled. And then when you have defined views, you can come in here and say Barney may be an Exchange admin, or it could be an Oracle DBA or an SQL DBA. We'll go ahead and put Oracle here just for that, and we'll save it. It'll probably tell me my passwords are different. So we'll do this. Actually, let's cancel that. All right, and then configuring email. One of the things about OpsCenter is that you can configure it to send email alerts or reports, or even SNMP traps. And you can easily configure your SMTP, your email information here as part of the wizard. But traditionally, you configure by going to the Settings tab and then going to the Configuration. You'll see here, in just a minute, there we go. You can see our lab stuff that we have here. When you go to Add a Master Server, essentially you'll be going to the NetBackup tab, and then you see you have the same wizard here. Yes. NetBackup agents, OpsCenter agents. Essentially now, with NetBackup 7.5 and NetBackup 7.6, most of the collection for OpsCenter is done by the integrated agent on the OpsCenter server, so there's no need to load a specific agent. However, one of the things that OpsCenter does allow you to do is run the capacity and traditional licensing reports using the NB deploy util from the master server. And to run those utilities, you do have to install an agent, an OpsCenter agent, and you can install that either on a NetBackup server, master or media server, or just a separate server if you have one already being used. And you can see here, you would just go through and create an agent if you're going to do that and go through that process. If you're going to add OpsCenter Analytics, you would go here to the License tab. For data purging, by default, OpsCenter keeps 420 days worth of data for analytics. It only keeps 60 days for the free version, but 420 days for analytics. And you can go in and define how long you want to keep that. Again, your email server is defined here. And that essentially, as far as configuring the server side components, those are the tabs that you will use. You can see here for the users, you can see all your users here, what kind of roles they have, and over here on the end under domain name, you can see where those users are being defined. If it's coming from a Windows domain, you can see that here, or if it's an OpsCenter user, you can also edit them by just selecting the one that you want to edit, and then you can delete. Well, you can't delete the admin, but you can delete the others. So if we want to do that, we can. And then views. I'm going to hit on views a little bit more. Previously, or in earlier versions of OpsCenter, there was a separate product. There still is a separate product called View Builder that comes with OpsCenter. And it will allow you to dive in and create views as we were talking about. But with 7.5 and more so with 7.6, they're integrating that component into the OpsCenter server itself. So most of what you will want or should need, you can do through just the server component. But if you do need more granularity, there is the View Builder, which is a separate Java application that you can install. For here, you can see we have views based on clients, master servers, and policies. If you want to add a particular view, you can come in here and let's call it, let's say we have storage and we do NDMP backups. So we want to call this an NDMP view. We want to do policies because that's what we're choosing to do. Now you could choose client or you could choose master server as well. Now again, all that does is just create an empty view. What you'll have to do is then highlight the view and not press edit as you would think, because all that does is allow you to change the name. But you would click on Manage Nodes and Objects, and that should bring up a window similar to this. Now, if you had multiple storage domains, like you had a NetApp, and my caps lock is on, and you could create a subfolder for NetApp, or you could create a subfolder for EMC, and then you could come over here from policies. We could do other policies. Since we're looking at policies, we're only seeing policies. And then we could find our NDMP backups and come over here. Say we want to, oh, those are our NetApp, so we want to put them here. And then just click Add to Node. And then here, we'll click Finish. So right now we don't have anything in our EMC folder, but if you did have EMC, you could do that here. And we'll see how that looks. So if we want to go to users, we do have Fred as an operator, and you can see he can see Exchange. So to show you real quick what that will look like, what we'll do here as admin, you can see here you have all your different views and you have all your different selections here. What we will do is log out type in Fred, type in Fred's password, if I remember it. And then we will log in. And here you can see the view has changed. He only has the Exchange view, and in that Exchange view, he can only see the nodes in the DAG. So that limits what he can not only see in the charts here, but what also he can report on, as well as alert. Any user can create an alert if they have the right permissions, but that will only be, or that will be limited by the view that they have been assigned. So you don't necessarily, you can't have your Exchange admin with an Exchange view, looking at the Oracle data, for instance. So what we will do is we will actually jump back and continue. So we were talking about creating reports. The main focus of OpsCenter is both report creation and alert monitoring. And as we had mentioned before, there are canned reports that come with NetBackup. You can see here is a list of some of the reports. There are a lot more that aren't on the screen. You can go in and look at those as you so desire in your own environment. When you go to select a report to create, these are all report templates that you were seeing. You actually have to go in and create a report specific to what you're wanting to monitor. Your reports can be specific to a master server. It could be specific to a client. It could be specific to a job or a policy type. However you want to configure it, you can take these templates and customize it to your need. What you see here is when you have analytics, you will have all three options available for creating reports from a canned report, a custom report, or running your own SQL query. And we'll talk about actually how to see queries and generate your own queries right now. With OpsCenter 7.6, Symantec has integrated into the console, which you can see here, their schematic document for the Sybase database. They've made it real easy here. Before, you actually had to go out and search and hope you got the right forum document or found the right forum discussion that included it. But with 7.6, they've included it here. You click on that, it will open up a PDF that will show you all the tables, the table structures, and everything regarding OpsCenter. Again, for queries, they've also added a new feature for a lot of the canned reports. Now, not all of the canned reports will have this, but if it's just running a straight SQL query, when you generate a report, there will be at the bottom of the report a show report query that when you click on it, you'll see a window like this that will show you the SQL code that was used. Now, you can take this code if you're trying to learn SQL and how to do it. You can take these and manipulate them as you desire with an OpsCenter Analytics license. If there are reports that they have, which they do have, that have stored procedures in them, in the document earlier, we'll talk about that. You will not see the query here or the link to the query for those. So some you will see, some you won't. But it's to give you an idea of how to do your own reporting if you need to do so. And I will speed this up a little. One of the features with reports is that you can have your own dashboard. When you first logged in, as you saw when we were doing the configuration part, there were predefined charts and graphs on the front page. You cannot change those. So Symantec has given you the ability to have your own page, to have your own charts that are meaningful to you. And you can see here, I've gone through and customized my dashboard. And you can have them in sections, and you can put whatever reports that you want in there to make it more, again, more meaningful to you. And we were mentioning email. When you configure a report, you do have the option to configure a schedule with that report, where you can set up when you want the report to run and whether you want the report emailed or just exported to a directory. If you do select email, you have several different options. You have email it in a PDF document, an HTML document, a CSV, a TSV, and a couple of other formats. This is a sample of an HTML email report. And again, we were talking about the capacity licensing before. One of the features with OpsCenter, again, Analytics, that has been around since 7.5 is the ability to run the NB deploy util on the master server, and that does require the OpsCenter agent to do that. And to run that report, it's not under reports, as you might think. You actually have to go to the Manage tab, and under 7.6, it's called NetBackup licensing. Under 7.5, it's actually deployment analysis or something like that. And then you choose which type of licensing that you have, whether it's traditional licensing or capacity licensing, and then generate the report. You can see here, again, this is a lab scenario, so that's a good way to show the different kinds of events that you might see outside of a successful run. But what this will do is this will generate a Excel spreadsheet or CSV file that you can open up and it's very nicely laid out. Gives you a summary page. It gives you per clients. It also gives you instructions on how to interpret the results. But again, you can see here, this is where you would go to generate that report. And then we will touch demo time. So let me switch back over to here. I'll do this real quick. Okay, there we go. So we will log in again. OpsCenter does have a timeout feature. So if you do happen to leave your browser running for a while, it will automatically log you out. And that is also a configurable timeout, though we won't cover that here. For reports, these were the different reports. You can expand all again. But we will go to create and run an SQL report. I will do that here just to show. And that will pull up when it finishes this document. And you can come in and it will show you, again, the schematic layout of the database. Now, I happen to have a query already set aside for this, so I will copy that, minimize that, pop that in here. Click Next, and then you can see your report here with all the data. If you want, you can click Next. Now, when you create a report, you get an opportunity to save it. Public reports are viewable, again, by the public. Private reports are viewable only by you. So if you want to create a specific report just for you, you don't think anyone else necessarily needs, then you may want to put it in private or create a new folder. If it's a report that maybe your managers or senior management wants to run, and so a lot of people will want to run it, you may want to put it in public reports. Dedupe, I'll just call it Dedupe 1, and then save. Okay. We'll click Finish. Okay, now we have that. But now we want to generate that report, say once a day. So what we will do is we will come to Schedules. You can see I have some schedules already defined here. This one is an 8 a.m. daily. This is just a Monday morning report. So I want to create a new report schedule. So call it something meaningful or not. And you can see the different formats again for sending the report. I want to use create a new time schedule. And let's call it daily 12 p.m. That's not 12. That is 12. And then we want to change it to match. That's not matching. That's matching. And you can see your different time patterns here. We want to run that daily. And you have to give it a start date. If you don't, it'll complain. Now you don't have to give it an end date, but you have to give it a start date. And then this is where you get to choose whether you want to export it to a directory. You can see here we're running this on a Windows server, so we have a Windows format, and that could easily be shared out via a Windows share. Or if you're doing or running this on a Linux or Solaris box, you can put it into a directory and then use something like Samba or something to share out the report folder there. In this case, we want to email it, and you can either type in an email or you click on To, and it will show you everyone who you've predefined already prior to creating the report. Let's see, daily dedupe report. Hope you find this interesting. And then you get to add which reports you want to send to that schedule. So we created this one as a public report. And then you can also set conditions for that report to be sent. If you desire, we're not going to for the sake of time. And now we have a schedule set up that will email that report at 12 every day. Now you can also go down here, as you saw folders earlier. If you have folders defined, you can go in here. And we'll touch on this real quick. Manage NetBackup licensing. Now this does take a while to run, so I'm not going to actually run it here. But what we do have is, if I've saved it, capacity report already run. And let's see if this formats out. This doesn't format well for the screen share, but here you can see a sample report. It does itemization, unused clients, and then interpreting the results. So that is what the capacity report gives you, which can be useful for management, as well as making sure that you're complying to any NetBackup license that you may have. So we will actually continue by going to the alerts. Oops. Jump too far forward. Let me do that. Okay, configuring alerts. There we go. With alerts, again, similar to reports, you can either email them or use SNMP traps. If you're using something like HP OpenView Network Node Manager or Microsoft SCOM or any other kind of trap manager, you can configure SNMP traps to go to whoever is listening for that, and then have some action that is defined. As you can see here, OpsCenter can alert and it can report, but it will not trigger its own license. It won't trigger another event. So you can monitor for a drive down, but OpsCenter by itself will not run an action to up that drive if the drive is down. Now you can use other utilities, again, like Network Node Manager or SCOM, to do things like that. If you're running an agent on a master server, you can do something like that. But again, as you can see at the top, reports come prepackaged. So you can only generate a report that Symantec says you can, essentially. You can't create your own report. You can customize what they provide you. But again, you can't create your own report. Now, what does that look like? In the GUI, under the Manage, there's an alert policy where you can define your alerts, as you can see here. You can also, there are shortcut keys, as you see. And at the bottom of the screen, there's an alert summary, which you can see highlighted with the red arrow, or pointed to by the red arrow. When you first log in to OpsCenter, you can check the bottom bar that you see there to see what kind of alerts you might have, whether they're critical, just a warning, or just informational. You get to decide what criticality of an alert actually is. But that is where you can quickly see what alerts there are. Now this is what it looks like in email. When you configure an alert, you also get to configure who gets alerted, because if you don't send it somewhere, unless someone logs in, it's pretty useless. So this is what an alert will look like. It's not fancy. It will say active or cleared, whether you've done that, whether it's an active or someone's actually gone into OpsCenter and marked it as acknowledged or cleared. But you can send these emails to, whoever needs to get it. And we will do live demo again. So we will jump back here. I will go through this pretty quick for the sake of time, because I know we're running back on time and we have a lot more interesting advanced stuff to talk about. But here are the alerts. Down here is the summary. When you click on an alert, you can go to Monitor, and then Alerts. And this will bring up, hopefully, quickly, all the alerts that have been generated. Now you can see we're filtering on active alerts, because I haven't come in and acknowledged all of them. But if you come in and see an alert, and your company has policies in place, that when an operator sees an alert, they have a specific job function to do, and they can come in and click acknowledge that has been done, and that alert has been taken care of, and it will move accordingly. Again, when you set up an alert, they are canned, so you can click Add. These are the these are the alerts that Symantec has defined that you can customize, but you can't create your own new alert. Like if you're still running with tape backups and you need a mount of tape, you can create tape and then library X. If you have more than one library, you can define alert for each library, or you can combine them. And then it will give you your option for your views. Every once in a while, you'll find that you may need to filter a report or filter an alert, and you can't do it with the options that Symantec gives you. Another way to get around that sometimes is to create a view. Like if you only want Exchange admins to get it, again, you can create an Exchange view. Now why they would want tapes, we don't know, but still that is a different way of creating the condition or scope of who can see it. And then you can come down and say that. And then this is where you would define who gets what alerts. You can add that. Click OK. And then if you have any trap recipients, when we were in the settings before an SNMP, you can define where or who is listening to that, and you would have that choice here. Now, we haven't defined that, so you don't see anything here. So we'll just go ahead and here you get to define the criticality, warning, and active, and then click Save, and such. So that essentially covers alerting at a higher level, allows you to dig in to customize it according to your needs. So give me a second while I take a drink. And we'll hit our advanced topics. Now, some of these we will blow through kind of quickly, because I know you're thinking we're getting short on time. However, again, by blowing through these, we're not de-emphasizing them. It's just that they will be here for reference in case you need to come back later and want to look at it again. They will be here, but we will go through them. Okay. One of the things that people tend to overlook when creating their own OpsCenter servers is to actually back it up. Now, there is a neat feature about backing up OpsCenter that Symantec seemingly left out, and that was the ability to back it up with a regular NetBackup policy. OpsCenter does use a Sybase ASA database, not an ASE database, so there is no Sybase connector by using the Sybase policy or the Sybase backup agent. However, they do have the same type of database, an ASA database, on the NetBackup master servers, and you would think that maybe, hopefully, one day they will also allow OpsCenter to be backed up via a policy like the NetBackup catalog EMM server. But until then, these are the commands and directories that you will need to back up for OpsCenter to be able to restore it. Now, there are different ways of backing up OpsCenter again without having that policy, and that is to perform a regular, full system backup, or do a VMware or Hyper-V backup, or just back up, at the file level, where you're only backing up a specific directory. You can see the admin script at the bottom for starting and stopping OpsCenter if you have to. You don't have to do a backup. The DB backup script that you see listed there will actually do a hot backup, but what it does is it will dump the files to a directory that you give it. And to cover the directories real quickly, at the top you see the data directory. That's where the Sybase database lives. There's authentication profiles if you're doing in-back, which is NetBackup role-based authentication. If you're doing that, OpsCenter can tie into that, and you will need to back up the system profile as listed there, or the VRTS at directory on Unix or Linux, and then the db.conf file. And those will capture the correct passwords. But if you're not doing in-back and that type of stuff, then the data directory will be primarily what you'll need. And these I will go through fairly quickly again. With Unix, the best thing to do is to cron the DB backup script. So just before you run a backup, whichever backup method you're choosing to do, you can dump the database to a disk and back it up, because as with any live database, unless you put it in hot backup mode during duration of the backup. Even if you are able to restore the files, more often than not, you will not be able to bring the database up because it was not in a consistent state. So whether you run the DB backup script from cron or from BP start notify script, or on Windows from the Windows task scheduler, you will need to do that again before you perform any of those backups, whichever method you happen to do. And then backing up always means that there might be an opportunity to restore, and this is how you would go through and perform an OpsCenter restore. You would use the same DB backup utility with this time adding the restore option. And also if you give it a restore directory, it will put it into that specific directory if you have changed the location of the OpsCenter database. And we will cover moving the OpsCenter database in a few slides. But if you have moved it, then you will need to specify the restore directory. If you have not moved it, if it's in its default location, then all you have to do is do a -restore, and it will automatically pick that up. One of the other features with NetBackup, again, as you saw at the beginning, is a restore operator. And whether it's a restore operator or an admin that is able to do the restore, you can do file restores, which does include NDMP, or you can do Oracle cloning. That's not really technically an Oracle restore. It will allow you to clone it to a different location. But those are the two functionality or two features as part of this restore functionality that OpsCenter provides. So you can do file level restores, and that will be based upon the view. Again, if you have a storage admin and you've given them view to just the NDMP backups that you're doing, then when they log in to OpsCenter and go to restore, all they will see are the NDMP backups that you've allowed them to see. They won't be able to restore anything else. However, this does not work, again, for any of the database agents. It does not work for an Exchange database or an SQL database unless it was backed up at the file level, not using the agent. And this is what it will look like if you go through that process of doing a restore. If you want to clone, I'm not going to dive into that now because it can be long in and of itself. But these are reference articles from Symantec on how to do cloning of an Oracle database through OpsCenter. If you want to jot those down or come back to it later, feel free. But we will move on. And then part of the, or one of the biggest things with OpsCenter these days, our backup environments are growing and growing. And that means there's more and more to report on, more and more to alert on. And the same settings on the OpsCenter server that were used to install may not be what you need now. And so tuning is needed. These are the different things that you can tune within NetBackup. That first link at the bottom, that doc, is the new 7.6 performance tuning guide from Symantec that we were talking about earlier. And that is the best reference I can say to go to if you are having performance-based issues. And we will kind of touch on each of these topics a little bit. OpsCenter uses Java a lot, so all the heap sizes can be adjusted. The Sybase database can have its cache size adjusted, because if it runs out of memory, we're obviously going to have problems. And there are different places, different components that can run out of memory, which is what we see listed here. Again, we'll just kind of highlight these so you can come back to them later. But the Sybase database will be dependent upon how much memory you have given the server, as will the other ones as well. But one thing you want to make sure is that when you make any tuning changes, one, that you back up the file that you're about to change, and two, that you have enough memory for that change. If you're increasing it, you don't want to give the database or Java more memory than physical RAM in the server, or else it's going to be swapping, which will make things very slow. Or even if it runs out of swap space, then it will shut down. One of the things that you can do to see if you're having a database sizing issue is to look in the server.log file that you see listed there on the second line in the table. And you'll see lines similar to what you see on the screen, that the cache file is too small and it's having to increase it. Every time it increases it, it may appear to be quick, but that's extra steps that are slowing down everything else. So proper sizing is a necessity, or the issue will become worse. The server, when you create a report, when you create an alert, all that is done via JavaScript. You can't actually go in and edit the Java, but you can give it more memory. And these are the files that you would do on the server side to give it more memory. You can see on the Unix or Linux there's a max heap, and on the Windows side it's labeled via the variables that you see there. Again, back up the file before you make any changes, and most changes will require a restart of OpsCenter. Now this is for the GUI, which is a different component, but does use more memory, of course. And we'll kind of go through these. Again, these are for reference purposes only, to let you know that they are out there, that they can be tuned if you need to. And if you are having an issue, come here or go to the performance guide first to find out what tunings you can do. If you're still having problems, feel free to give DataLink a call, and we will help you in that tuning process as much as the server will allow. Now, one of the things, again, with sizing, is that you may start out with a small file system, 60 gig, for example, for your database. But your NetBackup environment is growing and growing and growing, and all of a sudden your 60 gig is now way too small. You have the option, depending upon what kind of file system you're using, whether to extend that file system or to move it. These are the steps to move. If you're on Linux, it's real easy. With Windows, there's a couple more steps that are involved, and a registry edit that you can see here. Again, these are that you can see it to know that it's there. Now this is adjusting the Sybase database. I actually had that out of sequence, didn't I? Now the search and hold feature, this is for legal searches. If you're in an industry that requires the ability to do legal holds to meet certain requirements, OpsCenter does have that ability to search images. It will search flat file backup images, and it will allow you to hold other images. You can't search a database backup image and things like that. Again, there's a NetBackup component that we're not going to talk about much, but this does tie into it. And these are some of the requirements for that. And what does that look like? Here's a schematic. This is in the documentation. It's to show you it's not necessarily just a simple process, but it does show you all the components that are involved. And if you want more information on the search and hold, those are links that will definitely get you moving along your way. And we will continue for the sake of time. I know we are pushing that 1 hour mark. Oh, come on. Yeah, when you do a search, you can see here, it's similar to Enterprise Vault. If any of you have worked with Enterprise Vault, you set up your search criteria, which I kind of skipped over, and then it comes back and shows, okay, I have these many hits. And then you get to go in and select what you want to actually put on hold. And a hold will prevent NetBackup from expiring the images. It will keep it as long as you tell it until someone goes and releases that hold. And again, you can search on flat file backups or backup images. So if you know you have a database backup or Enterprise Vault or your email archiving backup image, you may not be able to search that backup image at a granular level, but you can say hold that image for legal purposes. And again, that's some of what you can see here. And this is for the image part. Troubleshooting, as with any product, ideally we don't want to, but the real world says otherwise. There are logs that OpsCenter has. You can enable logging via the unified logging commands, the VXLog CFG, as well as VXLogView to view them. We will see real quick that the log files are pretty much in a couple of directories, and so they're real easy to look at. If you do open a support call, there is a OpsCenter support script that you can see towards the bottom, and that will actually prompt you for collecting everything, including the database. Whether you want to include the database, include the debug logs, or include the install logs, that is a quick utility for gathering everything and then transferring it to us for any support cases that you might have. So we will move on real quick. For the NetBackup logs, OpsCenter communicates with NetBackup typically through the NBSL and the NB proxy services on the master server. If you're using an OpsCenter agent, though, it will communicate with that OpsCenter agent instead, and then that agent will run the commands just like you would from a command line. However, if you're not using the agent, these are the processes and debug logs that you will want to look at for troubleshooting. And this is a schematic breakdown of OpsCenter that can help you visualize the process flow, and if communication does break down, where to look based upon the error that you're getting. This should be the chart that I was referring to at the beginning with the ports for firewall purposes. These are in the admin guides, again, but I'm highlighting them here so you know that they're there. And then for troubleshooting, just standard troubleshooting techniques will hopefully be able to resolve anything that you need if you have those. If you don't, we will be glad to assist in troubleshooting. Big thing is name resolution. Make sure that the master servers and the OpsCenter server can talk to each other. Make sure that a change in a firewall hasn't taken place. Also, check the logs that we were just talking about. One of the big things with OpsCenter is you might see a partially connected master server, and there can be different reasons for that. Initially, when OpsCenter starts up, it will pull the information from the master server, and then after that, NetBackup will push any information to the OpsCenter server as it gets it. If there's been a period of time that OpsCenter or the master server has not talked to the OpsCenter server, OpsCenter will go out and pull it again just to make sure all is well. But it's not just an OpsCenter side. It could be that there's a hung process on the NBSL or NB proxy side that it's not allowing it to push. But again, looking at the logs will show you why. Here are a couple of sample log entries. You can see the top is where we ran out of space on the OpsCenter server side. It shows you temporary space limit is exceeded and that we needed to add more cache size. The bottom is for logging emails. If you aren't getting emails, there is an email, a specific file on the OpsCenter server for logging emails that you can see, did that alert or did that email get sent? If it's in that log, then OpsCenter generated it and sent it, and it may be on your Exchange server or Note server or whatever you're using. You would want to look there for the email. But if you don't see the email listed in that file on the OpsCenter side, then it wasn't generated, and we know to look there. Excuse me. Policies. Policies that are out of sync, sometimes corrupt policies do happen, and they can cause OpsCenter to go offline. OpsCenter will try to read the information, and it can't, and then fail. And you'll see that as partially connected. Sometimes, as you can see in the below, that a VM policy, a VMware policy, or Hyper-V policy has clients listed in it, and those clients are no longer there. Maybe they were deleted or moved to a different, environment or whatever. NetBackup is attempting to gather the vCenter, the virtual machine landscape, and so if anything has gone missing, it will also report that. And this is similar. These are events that you will see on the NetBackup side in the NB proxy log, indicating that it had an issue with collecting. And so these are other events. If you have a vCenter server that it can't log into, again, that NetBackup can't log into, you will see that here. Again, OpsCenter will try to connect to gather as much information about your environment as possible. And if you can see here, the logins failed on the NetBackup side, you'll see that translated to an OpsCenter data collector failure as well. And that is it. I know we've gone a few minutes over, and thank you for bearing with us. And again, we could go into a lot more, but we would probably need a couple of days to go into the real deep levels of OpsCenter. But hopefully this gives you enough information to do your job better. If you don't have reporting and alerting set up, you can hopefully be able to go in and do that to that. And with that, I'll turn you back over to Jim.
Thanks a lot, Paul. A lot of good information there. Hopefully everybody was able to get that digested. We apologize for going a little over the hour. I know there was a lot out there. But just as a reminder, you can still send any questions after this event to techtuesday@datalink.com. Tentatively, our next event is going to be June 17th at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, and it's going to be on NetBackup Granular Restore Technology, or GRT. Again, if you have any ideas for what you'd like to see on Tech Tuesdays, just give us a note at techtuesday@datalink.com. Again, thanks everybody for attending, and have a wonderful day.